All right, so I think we're going to get started today. Welcome everyone to the July edition of the Lightning Round, hosted by Spark and Tech Coast Angels LA. I'm Andrew Brilliant, and I'm very excited to be hosting this event today. So the way this is going to go is first we're going to start off with a panel discussion with our esteemed judges here. And then after that, we're going to move on to a competition. We've got 5 startups who are each going to be delivering a 5-minute pitch as they compete to earn a first place prize. So I want to start off by introducing our judges and panelists. First off, Stacy Cumberbatch is the Managing Director of Blended Impact Labs, a venture development firm and innovation lab focused on public-private partnerships to power the future of how we invest, earn, and live. Thank you for joining us. Len Lanzi is the longstanding Executive Director of the Los Angeles Venture Association and the Managing Director of the Sam Pre-Accelerator here in LA. Mickey Reynolds is the co-founder and CEO of Grid 110, an early stage startup accelerator and community development organization. And lastly, Christopher Yang is an executive committee member of Tech Coast Angels, one of the largest and most active venture syndicates in the country. He is also a seasoned tech project manager, having worked with several Fortune 500 companies. And despite holding 4 degrees from USC, Chris is also a lecturer at UCLA. So I'm now going to introduce the topic of our panel discussion. As a young aspiring entrepreneur, this is something I find incredibly important to talk about and to keep in the forefront of our mind. And that is the power of entrepreneurship to drive social benefit. So our discussion is going to revolve around 2 themes. One is how can we use entrepreneurship as a vehicle to drive social change? And then going off of that, how can we empower more aspiring founders to use entrepreneurship for positive social change? So to begin our discussion today, I want to ask our judges to talk about a startup they've worked with that successfully drove social benefit to its users. And real quick before we begin, there is a Q&A chat room. If you want to ask a question, feel free to drop that in the Q&A and I'll be reviewing them as we move along with our discussion. So feel free to jump in.
First.
Yeah. Take it away.
I'll jump in. Good morning, everybody. It's good to be here. Stacy and Mickey and Christopher, it's good to be on a panel with you. I think Lucas is out there in the Ethernet somewhere too. So good to be on with all of you. Just to clarify, I no longer run the Los Angeles Venture Association. I gave that up when I came over to the Pre-Accelerator. But I'll say social change and entrepreneurism and venture capital in many ways is very contradictory because the bottom line of venture capital is to make money. And I think a lot of times, unless there's a specific mandate within a fund to fund social change or social venture, it's not looked upon, at least from what I've seen, as something that is of great benefit. I think if you look at a company like Tom's as an example, where they drive social benefit from their revenues and have a charitable component to what they're doing, is probably the best way to go, but you can't do that until you make money. So it becomes very difficult from the outset to say we're going to do this and give away X, Y, Z, but you can't do that until you actually have a functioning company and you have revenues so you can affect that social change. On the other side of that, there are entrepreneurial enterprises that kind of border on the nonprofit, for-profit side, where they're doing something that's benefiting society directly. And a lot of time, if they're nonprofit, obviously venture is not going to fund that. They have to get monies from people that want to fund charitable enterprises. So there's some challenge, I think, as we look at this area of social venture, And I think that's evolving still. And there's funds out there that are specifically looking at social venture. The other way to look at social venture is, and I think Mickey and I were talking about this a little earlier today, is funding companies that are coming from underserved communities. Because if we can create wealth within a community that's been underserved in the past for whatever reason, that will benefit society in general, because it creates wealth within that community. So I think there's a couple of ways of looking at this topic. I'd be interested to hear what my compadres on the panel feel.
Yeah, I guess I'll jump in and talk about social entrepreneurship a little bit as well. And before that, just to clarify, my full-time gig right now is a tech executive at Corporate Travel Management, which is a multinational global travel agency, headquarters in Brisbane, Australia. In my current capacity, I not only manage project management, but engineers, developers, architect, and data science. The team probably about 50 people right now. And going back to the conversation, and I definitely agree that I think on the fundraising and raising capital side of things, right? So we don't see many angel investors investing in enterprise solely for its mission. However, if an impact investment does yield the same or even greater return, why not, right? So I don't see why not making the world a better place to live while generating financial gains. Is definitely something that I personally am interested. So I had the pleasure of mentoring a nonprofit, right, very recently called Frontida Records earlier this year as part of the MEPC program at the USC. Frontida is a healthcare technology nonprofit created by extremely talented USC students and passionate students. They're dedicated to developing medical record system for patients, physicians, and public health workers, and extremely low resource settings. So they went on, long story short, they went on to become the finalists at USC's PC competition and also won the social impact prize. As of today, they already deployed to EHR system in refugee camps in Greece and plan to expand their presence to Panama and Jordan. So to kind of wrap up, I guess arguably for-profit enterprise with socially driven missions have a better chance of attracting investment capital. The nonprofit comparison, traditionally they need to rely on ongoing fundraising effort to fund their operation, right? And this could be a slightly more challenging effort. Yeah, I'll have to see what other panelists have to say about this. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So maybe Andrew, I'll answer your question first, and then I'll also touch on some of what Len and Christopher has touched on. When I'm thinking of companies, like one of the favorite companies that I've worked with is 70 Million Jobs, and they are a company that has the largest database of second chance employees for employers. So they're specifically trying to employ people that have a felony on their record, for example. They have community around this, and when you talk about a niche demographic that is seeking assistance or needs help, they're specifically addressing that, and they're closing in on their Series A. They've raised several rounds around this concept, and that story and that niche is intricately, intertwined with their fundraising platform, and they've been successful in this. So when you think of a company like that, that's one of the companies that I think of that's a venture company in a space that's doing well, and also moving forward on a social impact mission, and they've integrated it well into their their company. It's not just an add-on or something that's here or there. It's part of their company. To Len's point, I actually think it's going to be a growing space, not only from the events of last year, but I'm seeing a growing niche of impact investors, for example. I'm deeply involved in different conversations where there are new models of investing that's starting to blend venture capital alongside other types of capital, which could be, some nonprofit capital. So venture philanthropy, impact investing, whatever, term you want to call it. There's starting to be this more and more this emerging asset class that I think people will be paying attention to, particularly as there's pressures on the asset allocators to respond to how they're allocating their funds. So at the VC level, we also will need to be able to define how and where we're allocating these funds. I'm not saying that that's going to be the primary thing that people decide on how to invest on, but it is going to be something that needs to be answered and spoken to. And those companies that have put some thought into it in some form, whether it be a metric that they are trying to hit or a framework that they're operating within, will have some. They'll just be advanced in those conversations.
Thank you so much for sharing. Mickey, do you want to touch on this or should we continue?
Yeah, happy to chime in on a company that we've worked with based in LA called Charger Help. So they're in the electric vehicle space. They basically saw a problem. The founder worked in the space before, servicing electric vehicle charging stations. And so they've created a platform essentially that on demand you can repair service stations. It's a huge problem in the industry, a lot of money being left on the table there. But the social impact of it, aside from being like in the sustainability space, is they're creating jobs. And so they have a whole curriculum and training program to provide an entryway into the sustainability and clean tech space for people who have no previous experience in this space, and specifically focusing on good paying jobs. So I love seeing companies like this where, I don't think that social impact and entrepreneurship are necessarily like mutually exclusive. I think there is a tremendous amount of overlap. And I think especially from a talent attraction, retention space, people want to work for a company that they believe in, that they're mission aligned with, that they have values with. And so whether you have a model like Tom's where it's a one-to-one give, or you're just trying to create meaningful change in the world by what you're doing. I've seen B2B companies do this. I've seen direct-to-consumer companies do this. So I think it's becoming more of an expectation that your why of, the problem that you're solving, there is a social impact to it. And that's what's going to, attract and retain customers, investors, and talent.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to say that entrepreneurship and social impact are mutually exclusive. That would put a whole bunch of people out of business who do those good works all the time. So I think the challenge, of course, is whether the funds have the mandate internally and with their LPs to fund things that answer that why, Nikki. I think that's really important. Those are questions I ask when companies come in. Why are you doing this? And what problem are you solving? Those are kind of the limiting questions I use with anybody that's coming into the pre-sale.
Yeah, thank you all for your responses to this. I want to take an opportunity to challenge what we think of as social change, because I think it's a kind of an umbrella term. And if I can give a good example, I've had type 1 diabetes for 13 years. And in those 13 years, I've watched technology develop and accelerate more and more different aids and ways to manage diabetes. And presently, the systems that I use were all born from startups, for-profit companies, namely Dexcom and Tandem, that started off just like most other ventures start off with a seed round. And both of them were actually able to not only as a startup, reach IPO and become very successful organizations that employ hundreds of thousands of people, hundreds to thousands. They also made a serious impact in my life. They made my life easier, and they made me healthier, and they make me happier. So that's something that I wanted to consider too, is that there's a lot more to being socially mission driven than just being overtly philanthropic. And I'm glad that Stacy and Mickey touched on that, which leads me to my next point, a little bit more of a critical thinking question. What is a social problem that you identify right now that you think can and should be solved with the entrepreneurship model? I'll open that up for the floor.
I don't have a specific example, but like very recently, I had the honor to participate at as a lead mentor at the World Innovation Hackathon. Right, this was back in May, and it was made in collaboration with UN Environment Program to support three of the, I would say, most pressing UN Sustainable Development Initiatives. Right, one of them is health and well-being. Second is quality of education, and third is economic growth and the future of work, right? So while progress in many health areas are strong, but needs, I mean, and child health care, mental health care, HIV immunizations have been lacking. And also with an estimate of like 200 million children out of school by 2030, and inequality of education worsened by COVID-19. Remote learning remain out of reach for over 500 million students. So the important question is, how can we develop innovative solution to help democratizing learning for all, right? And the last piece, are there innovation solution to help 400 million recent displaced worker in 2021, right? Mostly due to COVID, right? So these are some of the areas where I've seen a lot of interesting, not just hackathon solutions, but business model developed around.
Thank you for sharing. Do we have any more thoughts on this?
Yeah, happy to jump in. So I'll share the way I look at companies or how I invest is around a thesis of companies that are trying to advance the way we invest, live, and earn. And what I mean is, one, what are the capital sources that we're putting into businesses? How can we create different capital stacks or capital models to actually enable entrepreneurism in a different type of way, where the return can be acceptable either in a venture class or in a revenue-backed asset class or some other class that can still encourage entrepreneurism. Because I came from a heavy real estate and fintech background, that carries through. So that's why I say, how we earn and live as well. And I want to clarify that I look across asset classes. So I look at the businesses and the real estate that accompanies it. I want to make that differentiation because those are the problems I'm trying to solve for. One, capital access. Two, real estate affordability and housing for businesses and the consumers that are affiliated with it, and the actual economic mobility of business owners or founders in certain demographics. So when I'm thinking about how problems can be solved, that's what I'm tying back to my thesis of how we invest, live, and earn.
It's incredible. Thank you. Len, Mickey, do you guys have any thoughts on this?
I always look for the big problems to be solved. I'm a big fan of life science startups that are solving for disease solutions or new practices to make medical care more efficient, bring it to the home, more accessible. I'm involved in several nonprofits, and one of them is involved in delivering family health and AIDS prevention work in sub-Saharan countries in Africa. And it would be great to have some technology that would help us track that and make sure that the delivery that we're giving is getting to the right folks. That's very people intensive. So if there's some tech that can make that more efficient, that would be great. I'm chair of Meals on Wheels here in Santa Monica. And so hunger and people who are shut in and having solutions to help make sure that people are getting proper nutrition and that they're living healthy lives and have access to food. Food scarcity is a problem. It's a problem for shut-in elderly, and it's a problem for many college students who can't afford the cost of tuition, housing, and food. So these are problems that I'm not sure if there's tech solutions for many of them. It'd be great to see people start to look at these types of problems to develop tech solutions for.
Thank you for sharing. Are there any final thoughts before we move on to some of my other points? Got it. So I want to start looking at that second point I was talking about, and that's sort of switching gears to look at how we can make entrepreneurship more accessible to aspiring founders, especially founders who come from backgrounds with limited resources, but even those who don't, because I've identified a problem in this community of entrepreneurship where access to things like incubators and accelerators and things that are supposed to help primitive ideas get off the ground are actually incredibly difficult to become a part of. And in lieu of that, in light of that, what are recommendations you have for aspiring founders to reach the stage where they're able to be viable for an accelerator or an incubator or any kind of program that will help them get off their feet?
Educate themselves, number one, and take advantage of the resources that are out there so they understand what an incubator is or what an accelerator is, so their expectations are aligned with what the delivery is. I think that lack of access starts with a lack of understanding of what the resources are and how they can be helpful. I think there's a lot of resources out there for folks. It's a matter of how do we get the message to those people? How are we advertising or target marketing to people who may not have access to these things, generally speaking, but we have to be proactive in our community to go after those folks and make ourselves available and be open to people who need to be served.
And in addition to that, I think I fundamentally, I don't see there's a whole lot different between a regular enterprise versus a social entrepreneur enterprise in terms of how the companies should be run, right? So I think even social enterprise need to invest in human capital, talents, as well as technology, as mentioned earlier, right? And we really focus on maximizing impact and efficiency, right? By selecting the right program, right? And really form as many meaningful partnership as necessary. And one thing, I guess, what I advise either social NGO or social enterprise to look for is maybe other financial vehicles outside of like just straight up donations or capital from social investors, right? I mean, look for like potential loan guarantee that allow you to lower some of the interest from the debt financing, or maybe look at some quasi equity debt type of financial vehicles.
I want to echo, Chris there, because I think sometimes when companies are looking for funding, the first thought may be venture capitalists because VCs have money, right? But there are other capital sources that I wasn't even aware of outside of the VC world until I became, adjacent to the economic development world, for example, that could be very, very useful. So when you talk about, for example, loan guarantee products, or potential grants, or potential SBIR, or potential credits, et cetera, that might be available at the earliest stages through a local economic development agency, I also just want to flag that and point that out to any panelists, because taking advantage of your city or your county or your state resources also should be on your radar, because that's typically non-diluted funding right there. That should be your first source of funding before going on to anything on the VC track, and it can be layered in at different stages. I really want to flag Mickey and your accelerator, for example, because that's a prime example of a resource that's available at early stages to support entrepreneurs like this. So I just really wanted to put that on people's mind, that it doesn't need to be one or the other, but it really can be integrated, and it should be, so that you can retain as much as you can and use things at the right stages for your business.
I completely co-sign everything Stacey just said. Huge fan of different sources of capital, alternate funding models, different pathways for founders. My dog also agrees. I think that there's two things that I look at in terms of, how to provide a solution for this. One, it's like on the very early stage of the spectrum. It's, getting exposure to this. And so just like how there are youth programs for encouraging, women or girls in STEM or people of color in STEM, because there is a huge drop-off point, or there aren't a lot that are participating or feel like they're, they have avenues for this. Even just like the simple thing of introducing like design thinking classes into, early stage education or in college, because you think about, problem solving and solutions, and that's the foundation for entrepreneurship. So just exposure to how can you look at the world and see problems and suggest solutions for them. It's kind of the, the start for that. So being able to, education is a whole overhaul in itself. But so that's one end of the spectrum. And then the other end, kind of what Stacy touched upon, is, innovation on the capital side. And, most founders that I meet, regardless of the type of business that they're building, it could be a small business, it could be more traditional brick and mortar. When they hear about wanting to get involved in the startup ecosystem, they think that venture is the only way to go. Venture makes sense for a very small fraction of companies. And the numbers are just like abysmal in terms of underrepresented founders that actually get that funding. So what are the other options for them? But also, what is the innovation that can take place in the investment community? What are the different types of models that can be created that from a access to capital perspective, like what Stacy was talking about, whether it's non-dilutive or equity crowd investing platforms, or even who can actually be considered an investor, and the requirements that, just the wealth creation opportunities, I think there needs to be a huge overhaul in that to really enable the diverse types of funders and founders that need funding.
And to piggyback on that, Mickey, CF funding, was relatively new. Equity funding is relatively new in our space, and that's a huge innovation that came out of the Jobs Act. And while it doesn't solve everybody's problems, it's certainly a start in the right direction, both from the founder side and also the investor side, because now non-accredited investors can get involved in funding social enterprise or funding ideas that they think can affect their lives or do good in the world. And so there's more room for that type of innovation, for sure. We do live in a regulated space, so it needs to be a public-private partnership as we move forward on how to come up with solutions that will work for everybody and maintain some integrity and fail-safes within the system.
Thank you. Thank you all for the responses. I just want to give a quick reminder to our audience that if you do have any questions for the panel, feel free to drop them in the Q&A and I'll address them as they enter. So I want to go back and touch on the point we were talking about sort of beginning resources, educating yourself as a founder. In a more practical way, what are places you think aspiring founders can start? Whether that's a YouTube channel, a book, a website. Do you guys have any thoughts on this?
Well, I'll jump in. I mean, just do a Google search and the resources come up. It's not that hard to find these things. If you're fortunate enough to go to university, there's resources typically at every university for starting businesses and entrepreneurship. Outside of that, the SBA, the Small Business Administration website, has resources on how to start businesses. There's small business development centers. There's individual cities have programs for folks that are looking to start businesses, and then there's the private sector. So that's probably the starting point that I would suggest people go to, unless they're book learners, and there's volumes of material to read in this space if you want to educate yourself.
Thank you. Do we have more thoughts on this? Okay, we've got a question from our attendee, Raj. Raj asked how he can get more acquainted with the angels and VCs in Los Angeles.
I could jump in and speak to that. Obviously, Lucas will be a wonderful resource here, as well as part of TC's executive board. I think if you have a wonderful, if a good sounding problem to solve, if you have a good problem to solve and a good business model, it's definitely feel free to submit an application through TCA's website, and we'll look at them as we go. And we regularly provide our deal flow to syndicates, so we could help. I mean, in case you're raising a round that's above our threshold, we would definitely be able to syndicate the deal to other angel investment network in the region. In terms of directory, I think as Len mentioned, right? I mean, a Google search will probably help you with the initial, I would say, information gathering. And I think there's a lot of angel investment network in the nations. They all have their independent, I would say, screening and also reviewing process. So I would advise you to kind of reach out to as many of them as possible.
Thank you. Also, I have a question here from Todd Hirschberg, a longstanding mentor of mine. Todd asks what each of you are looking for in applicants to your programs. So what kind of qualities are you looking for in startups that are applying to be a part of either looking for investment or to be a part of your accelerators?
Fearless passion. People who have some type of record of execution. And that can be as simple as having a college degree. I will say that I have made choices in the past on people, and sometimes I will be hesitant to take a newly minted college grad with an idea and think that they can get funded. But they can get funded, because if they're fearless and they're passionate and they have tenacity and drive, they will get it to the finish line. So I've revised the way I look at people and their capacity to execute and giving them a chance to execute. The idea, at least at my stage, is very secondary because it's going to change. Almost invariably, there's going to be a pivot and something's going to have to change. So to that effect, they need to be coachable. They need to be flexible. They need to put aside, have the ability to put aside their ego for their idea so they can find success. And those are kind of the things I look for in people that are coming into the Precelerator program.
For Grid 110, we look for founders that have an identified problem that they're solving and can articulate that. I think that's the number one thing when we look at applications is you understand, like, why are you doing this? Why does this need to exist? And what is the matching solution to that problem? So I think one, being able to focus on the problem. I see a lot of solution-focused companies that have a solution that is searching for a problem, and it makes it so much harder to try and figure out who your customers are, what you should price it at, who needs this. So I think starting with the why, starting with the problem, and if you don't know what that is, just start talking to people about problems that they are facing in a particular industry or with what they're currently doing. How are they currently solving that problem right now? What do they not like about that? So I think the more that you talk to people about this, I think we see so many people, especially at the idea stage, like keep it so close to their chest. Like they don't want to talk about it because they don't want someone to steal their idea. And there are no original ideas out there. It really is in the execution. So get comfortable talking to people, getting feedback, asking for feedback about what you're doing. So that's the primary thing that we look for in terms of potential applicants for Grid 110. You can be anywhere from like later idea stage. So ideally you've got a prototype, maybe an MVP, something kind of tangible to show for what you're building, all the way through you've launched your business, you have an established company, but still in like the pre-seed or early seed stage, and everything in between. We don't solely focus on tech companies. So we work with more traditional small businesses, brick and mortar, quote unquote, lifestyle businesses. I really hate that term, but VCs tend to understand what that means, maybe more of a sustainable growth type of company, and then also venture scale companies. So we're really focused on the entrepreneur, getting to know them and seeing how we can be helpful with the resources that they need.
I'll answer that question in two ways. At the lowest end, the programs that I'm running right now are in conjunctions with cities, and we will set criteria together that will vary across the geography of the city. So for example, when you talk about diversity of founders or businesses, there's also a geographic diversity that I'm seeing when I'm spanning different areas in terms of what the stage or the scale of that business might be. And what the city wants to encourage growth in and can encourage growth in with their natural resources. So that starts to become more of a priority when I'm working on city-driven programs, for example. When it starts to progress beyond what resources we're adding from a city level, and I'm looking at what might be interesting for myself personally, then it starts to become very much more intricately involved in terms of not only the founder, but what is their mission and does it align with something that is, I do look for socially driven companies. I do still have a heavy aspect on the real estate part of things. So I'm typically looking at companies that I can see a path to real estate acquisition or development with as well. So those are the two other considerations that I'm looking at in addition to the founder and what they're building, and can I be a value add in addition to everything that all of the other panelists have said.
And I also agree with a lot of other panelists have spoken already. Mostly on the people side of things, integrity is very important, and have the realism, understanding the problem domain, and having the operating skills that's necessary to run the company and the business. And very importantly, grit is one characteristic I look for, right? You need to be able to persevere because entrepreneurship is very difficult, and many times you have to pivot. Having that flexibility, moldability is very important. And I think Miki and Cece also touched on like commitment to ventures and your investors, making sure that this is not a lifestyle business that you're running. And from a social entrepreneurship perspective, we want to make sure that you're not just doing the goods, you also be able to generate the expected returns for your investors. Thank you.
Yes, thank you all for the comments on this. I do actually have another question that popped in. Where are you seeing the biggest gaps in startups that aren't capital related, and what are the startups really missing other than cash?
I think the biggest gaps that I see is just a lack of understanding of this asset class and what this asset class does for you as a company, how it can propel you, but what some of the challenges are when you take venture capital money and how that affects you. So there's some lack of basic education as to what venture capital, angel capital means. I see that with a lot of applicants. The other thing, and I think Miki, you said it, was looking for a problem to solve. Having a solution for a problem that may not exist or has such a narrow focus, the market's not big enough. So coming in without a big enough total available market is also a thing that I see where, from a venture standpoint, it just can't scale big enough in order to be successful as a venture funded company. That doesn't mean it can't be successful as a company with other capital sources. And, hopefully when I see those, I point that out to them and help them find those resources outside of venture.
Yeah, I feel like often venture is treated as sort of a prize to be earned and not necessarily looked at for what it is, which is a tool to grow a company, and it's a very specific tool. So I appreciate that input. Do the rest of our panelists have any thoughts?
I really like that. I'm actually just going to add, I typically see talent as a gap, for example, being able to build out the team that you need with limited resources at most times, and being able to have that diversity of thought so that you can fill in gaps in how you're approaching scaling. Even when there is access to talent, sometimes it can be bringing on more of the same, where you're not really stretching to grow and achieve what can really be at scale if you were to have challenges to your thought process. So talent on those two aspects is what I would say would be the challenge outside of capital.
Thank you. Mickey and Chris, do we have any thoughts?
I guess last thing I will add, in addition to having talent and capital, I think the overall mission statement is obviously very important in terms of attracting the right talent from a social enterprise perspective or an NGO perspective. But more importantly, the team needs to have a sounding strategy in terms of how to deliver some of these benefits, right? So sometimes I see smaller, I would say, social enterprises. Initially, they don't have a coherent and focused strategy in terms of what they want to focus on initially. So they go out and try to tackle multiple programs at the same time, which you might not be leveraging and utilizing your resources in the most effective and efficient manner. So I just want to call that out as well.
Thank you. So I think we've led a great discussion. I think we've gone a long way in answering those 2 points that I set out at the beginning. And if I can sort of offer a closing remark before we go in to our competition, it would be that again, as sort of the top end of a member of Gen Z, my peers and I are hyper focused on this idea of using entrepreneurship to fuel social benefit. So I just wanted to leave it out there that we are thinking about this, we are actively pursuing it, and we are really striving to make a difference. So thank you again to all of our panelists. I really appreciate talking about this. It's one of my favorite things to discuss. And now I wanted to make that transition toward our competition. So panelists, please log into your Spark profile and get prepared to judge. Please note that they might not appear in the order that they will be speaking. And lastly, we'll be accepting 1 to 2 questions at most after each startup pitches, and we will be capping the pitches to 5 minutes with a hard time limit. So I'd like to start this off by inviting Karin and the Makina team to present. Karin, I'm going to promote you to a panelist now, and feel free to screen share.
Hello there. Just a second. It still says disabled screen sharing.
1 moment. Sorry.
Okay. Let me change my.
Now.
Okay, just 1 second. Try one more time. Yes.
All right.
Yay.
Fantastic.
All right. Can everybody see my deck?
We got you.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Karin Frame, CEO and founder of Makina. So when I was a kid, my parents built a house on a lake that was across the street from a cornfield that was sprayed with pesticides every year. As a result, everyone in my family ended up getting sick. So I know firsthand the importance of what we put in and on our bodies, and I'm not alone. 98% of consumers would buy better products, especially if they were affordable. I also have a lot of friends who founded natural products brands. They've started off in farmers markets, grown a loyal following, and then ended up in large retail chains only to get lost on the shelf and eventually go out of business because consumers couldn't discover and find their products. Currently, brands spend thousands of dollars on Facebook and other media to get discovered, and even more for data with companies like Nielsen to figure out who their shoppers are, where they're shopping, and what's in their basket. Makina solves these problems. For the consumer, it's through our free mobile app, and for the brand, it's through our proprietary data insights and engagement dashboard. Once a consumer downloads Makina, they can discover, find, and engage with brands, purchase products anywhere, even online, We're talking Amazon, Thrive Market, Safeway, Albertsons, it doesn't matter. And when they have the product in hand, all they have to do is scan the barcode and submit the receipt through the app. Voila. We're then rewarded with cash and more for buying better. We're talking about products that meet either your dietary requirements, like let's say you're celiac, you're looking for gluten-free, or lifestyle preferences. Okay, I'm a vegan, so I want to look for just plant-based foods. For brands, it's easy and fast, taking only 2 days to get launched on Makina. Through our platform, Makina collects data directly from the consumer and provides it to the brand, so it's easy for the brand to create loyal consumers 64% of the time. The natural products industry is $252 billion in sales and growing at 10% year over year, with brands spending about $49 billion on marketing, with $22 billion of that on promotions and social media. Makina plays in that space and is also selling access to the data it collects. We sell our platform as a service to brands. However, the real value of Makina is in the data that we collect, even data about trade spend and the competition. So far, we've collected over 140,000 digital and physical receipts from over 32,000 points of sale. So our go-to-market strategy is pretty robust. We've secured and continue to secure a number of strategic alliances and channels to build both our consumer and brand base. So for example, we've already finalized deals with Sampler, the Pet Sustainability Coalition, and others. And by the end of the year, because of this go-to-market strategy, we plan to add another 750 revenue-generating partner brands. So we're generating early revenue, just as I mentioned, and we've increased our sales 200% month over month since January. By the end of the year, we're on track to sell over $1 million in mobile subscriptions to over 750 brands. Our team is highly experienced in the consumer packaged goods, data, retail, and natural products industries. This is my third tech startup and second in the natural products space. I'm a former general counsel and CPA, and I've worked for companies like Intel and Accenture, closing on data deals. My founding CTO, David, has built platforms for Techstars-backed companies and for large corporations like Disney. We have 6 other very passionate and dedicated teammates. However, we also have some great notable advisors, and they were executives at Nielsen, Pepsi, and Walmart. We're raising our seed round of $2 million. 850,000 of those funds will be used to grow and engage with our shopper base. We're currently part of Mass Challenge's Cohort 50, and here are some of our key investors and earned media. We'd love for you to also join us as we grow Makina into a healthy household name. Thank you.
Karin, that was 5 minutes on the dot. Excellent job. Just want to see if our judges have any questions. We only have a little bit of time, but I will open the floor. Okay.
It's quiet.
We are looking good here.
Karen, is there any competition that you, I didn't see a competitive slide in your deck.
Yeah, thank you for asking. Let me just flip to our competition slide. Let's see, I have a lot of extra slides here. There we go. So we do have some competition. So Fetch Rewards has raised $323 million. They just were led by SoftBank, a $210 million round in March. And they're all over the place. They're doing restaurants, they're doing all sorts of not better for you brands. It doesn't matter to them. Another competitor is Ibotta, and they've raised $173 million, and they just did a deal with Walmart. Now, the interesting thing about both of these competitors is that they use a shared vendor to help them scrape the data and provide the platform for them. So it's not even their platform. But the other thing is that they're not truly omni-channel. So Makina, we don't care if you buy at a farmer's market, you buy directly from the brand on their website, you buy from Walmart, Albertsons, Piggly Wiggly. We collect data all over the place because we provide the offers to the shoppers where they already like to shop.
Thank you so much. I want to open the floor to our next presentation, which will be with Handoyo at a company called Liridio. So I'm going to promote him now, and we will go from there.
And thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks so much, Karen.
Okay, I'm gonna turn on my camera. You guys can see me okay? Yeah, let me share my screen. Okay. Everyone can see the screen, it's all right?
Yes, we got you.
Okay, all right, let's start. Hello, everyone. My name is Handoyo. I'm the CEO of Lirit. Before we start with what we do, I'm sure most of you heard about these companies that took down most of the internet. I'm not singling them out, but that is today's reality of cloud computing. There's this conundrum where everyone sees the benefit of running on multiple clouds. However, through my 15 years of developing enterprise software, I noticed that the burden of developing and operating a multi-cloud solution is always placed at the end users, which is not feasible for a lot of companies. Also, on the flip side, I also noticed the lack of motivation by the big cloud vendors to support these types of solutions. We certainly think that's a big problem. So we started Lirit to solve this over-reliance on a single vendor for running your cloud business in the cloud. We start with this technology called Serverless. Our serverless compute platform allows our user to code once using our code template that does not contain any cloud signatures. The platform utilizes data, machine learning, and users policy to wrap, deploy, and execute the functions from one cloud to another. Lirit Function Delivery Network distributes the application, and in the end, the user will be able to choose to dial on what's best for their organization, whether it's performance, security, or cost. We will ensure your application availability by hosting the endpoint on multiple clouds and the ability to execute to multiple clouds. By combining the power of serverless and our cloud agnostic deployment with minimal operations, we give our value to our end users of a massive savings potential. They can go upward to 90% of their cloud bill. So now we're pursuing the market with our unique approach. And our most effective way to grow the company at the moment is by partnering with the right companies at the right time. We build technologies partners with startups at seed and Series A that doesn't want to be limited in their deployment. We are also building partnership with solution provider that has connections to the enterprise client that knows about their pain points. We then present Lirit together with the startup application as a solution that solves their pain point effectively on any cloud platform. And we started this strategy about 3 months ago, and we're on track for bookings of $450,000 of revenue and $110,000 ARR for 2021. We're projecting $1 million revenue and $250,000 of ARR in 2022. And here's some example of the solution that we're currently building with our partners in the platform. It encompasses different use cases like running artificial intelligence, distributed monitoring, modular ERP solution, to e-commerce platform. And to give the idea about the market size that we're pursuing, we are currently, the current ecosystem of application and services that we're building in the platform can easily put us within $160 million market. And with enough supported applications and services baked into the platform, we'll be able to chip away $125 billion of total infrastructure spend and create a larger market share for serverless. As far as competition goes, we're the only serverless solution that will provide a full holistic cloud experience while still allowing our users to maintain their own platform. In the near future, we will be providing the same experience for cloud databases and storages, which makes us a truly one-stop shop for building your application. And with that, we're currently raising safe of $1 million on $20 million cap with 20% discount. And we plan to use this fund to close our engineering gaps, improving our business and cloud operations, and further expand our marketing. And our plan for Series A at the end of 2022 will be a raise of $5 million on $25 million valuation to fully kickstart our global growth. Lastly, we're a team of brilliant engineers and advisors. I'm the CEO of Indirect, and prior to this, I was the director of solution engineering, where I built multi-million-dollar data center operations. And my COO, Simon, worked on Fortune 500 companies as a regional sales leader. He has a lot of experience navigating sales and development for business strategy. Our advisor came from a very strong enterprise background and has been a tremendous help for us in helping us building our enterprise strategies. Our users have been loving their experience so far. And with that, we thank you for your time and listen to our pitch, and feel free to contact us for any questions. Thank you.
I thank you for the wonderful presentation. I do have a couple of questions related to your product offering, right? Is this data infrastructure? Oh, is this an infrastructure offering that you're providing, or is this more of a deployment software?
It's infrastructure. We're actually running the execution as well. We are doing the build, the deployment, and the execution. So it's a SaaS platform that actually does all those three at the same time.
My understanding is Amazon AWS or Microsoft Azure have their own cloud offering along with serverless infrastructure, right? Lambda to like Azure Function Apps, right? So are those your direct competitors? Because I did not see them listed on the slide.
Well, they're direct competitors, correct, if they want to actually work on one cloud vendor. I'm putting the slide on the slide, the one that actually does multi-cloud offering, and that's the one, the serverless that supports serverless on multi-cloud. There you go, serverless platform on multi-cloud. So all of those vendors that is like Azure, AWS, or Google, or have their own offering like these, but they always lock you into that platform. And whatever you choose, always work each other only for their platform, basically. And we're trying, the platform that we're trying to solve is that we can actually stitch them together, all the other clouds.
Sorry, one more follow-on question, right? When you talk to your customers, right, what would be the business case around having the multi-cloud infrastructure, right? Because traditionally business will like to consolidate. It's easier. They're getting charged for traffic coming out and coming out, going in the cloud environments, right? So we're seeing hybrid environment, but those are mostly related or tied to like a on-prem plus a cloud, right? Because for data privacy and security reasons. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
And we do support that too, hybrid. Yeah. We do provide our own platform on your own machines, and one of the reason is actually that you're saying like security running on your own platform, and that's the conversation I have with most of the enterprise users. The other reasons for different clouds, supporting different clouds, is one of them that I'm talking with is actually a regional advantages of certain clouds. Basically, certain clouds only work in certain places, and they want us to. They don't want to actually learn about that cloud vendor, and they just want to publish their code, and we'll push it into their cloud, basically. And that's the idea of this. You don't actually have to hire a bunch of other knowledge for the other cloud. There you go. To be able to push in your product into the other cloud.
Thank you. That's actually all we have time for today. But Handoyo, excellent presentation, and we appreciate.
Thank you.
So next, I want to welcome Tirash to the floor and his company Appsy. Let me promote you to panelist right now. And Handoyo, thanks again. So Tirash, yeah, perfect. So whenever you're
Can you
ready,
guys hear me?
get away. Mhm.
Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you, we can't see you.
Okay, perfect. You cannot see me. Okay, hold on.
Now
So
we
is it
can-
now?
Perfect.
Okay, let me go ahead and get this started. Sorry about that. All right. I'm Turaj, and I'm talking about Appsy. We are uniquely combine human creativity with AI speed and accuracy to build better, cheaper, faster mobile apps. So some stories, real stories about our customers. A while back, a USC-based startup came to us, and they talked about the bad experience they had with the Ukrainian dev shop. They had spent more than 50K, and out of the 25 pages in their app, half of them were not functional. We are currently building them an app with 10 times the number of screens with 1/10 of the cost that they spent with them. Another client came to us. They were building a employee health management system on Google's low-code platform, AppSheet. After gaining a couple of customers, AppSheet wasn't scalable enough to handle the complexity for the new use cases, and we are building them a new app at a lower cost. The problem is there is either human programmers are doing everything, or humans are totally out of the question. And that makes it impossible to build scalable, affordable custom apps quickly. So if you look at the entire spectrum from offshore dev shops, onshore dev shops, low-code platforms, and of course Appsy, none of them other than Appsy is able to provide all good things in terms of customizability, scalability, low price, quality, low duration, and being a trustworthy partner. And at Appsy, we are able to do so. It is based on the fact that we uniquely combine human creativity with AI to generate code. At the core of our platform is a patented technology that automatically generates most of the UI code and also the backend logic. So other than that B2C solution that I just talked about, we are also launching our B2B SaaS solution in August, and the same internal tool that we internally use to generate code, we are going to expose it as a web application. People can upload their design and a description of their application, and on the other side, we generate a fully functional application. And compared to other tools out there, we are the only one that support all different screen sizes like mobile, tablet, and web. And we are the only one, even more importantly, that generates a code which is 100% similar to what a human developer would have written. This is a demo of the same tool that we use internally, and also we are going to be exposing as a web SaaS platform soon. So the input is a design created by human. As you can see, the counter on the lower left shows that it only takes a little bit more than 30 seconds to generate the entire app. So once the app is generated, it seamlessly runs on a mobile. It has all of the screens for the mobile, but the same thing can just run seamlessly on a tablet, and it has all of the complex features on the app. In terms of the team, I'm the CEO and VP of technology. I'm doing a PhD in computer science at USC, researching on the same field. And I'm focused as a CTO, I'm kind of building all of the technology tools. Alex is our VP of revenue. He has a lot of experience running product teams and also acting as a sales tech salesperson. Paulina Vargas is our VP of experience, and he's a super talented interaction and UI UX expert. Our designers comprises of Ray Private, which is part of Tech Los Angeles, and Paul Orlando, who is a professor at Marshall School of Business. In terms of competition, we can categorize them in terms of cost and competition. Low-code platforms, do it yourself, do everything at a relatively low cost, but of course, they are not complexable. Shiny consulting firms on the other side charge you a lot, and they can do everything for you. We are kind of the unicorn company that we provide a fully custom app at very low cost. In terms of customers, since launching in 2021, we've been able to get 10 paying customers from all around the board, mostly through referrals and direct sales. And in terms of financial, we are a healthy startup. Our MMR in the recent past few months has been 20 to 30K. And our cost of acquisition is pretty low, less than 100K. At this point, we are trying to raise 1 million with a 6x return on investment, which is going to be spent on hiring people for revenue and working on the product. So with that, I would love to thank you and open it up for questions.
Thank you so much, Siraj. Do we have any questions?
Thank you, Taraj. I'm not sure if I missed your go-to-market strategy, but can you talk a little bit about your sales pipeline, please, and how you're thinking of scaling?
Sure. So our channels like I said, we have B2B and B2C. For the B2C channels, for the B2C side, we are relying on giving out a lot of webinars in different college campuses and on startup platforms. We have a lot of deals going on a lot of deal platforms, and on a daily basis, we get 3 or 4 requests from people to build their apps. So our channels are pretty kind of active in terms of B2C. On the B2B side, which is going to come in 1 month, we are going to be relying on a lot of advertisement. I ran an ad just to make sure it's going to work. In the 2 weeks that I ran it, it had 30K impressions, and out of that, 1,000 people came to our website, and that shows that it's going to be finding customers for B2B is going to be pretty easy.
Thank you.
Sure.
Is there one more question for Taraj before we move on? All right, thank you very much for presenting. I would like to now welcome Neil and his company, InkCloud. So I'm going to promote Neil right now, and we will kick it away. Thank you again, Taraj.
Hi guys, let me get my video on and I'll be presenting. All right, here we go. Everything look okay?
Everything looks good. If you're okay, got it. Perfect. Thank you.
Hey, so my name is Niall McSheffrey. I am a COO of InkCloud. My partner Adam is on, CEO. He's on a video, but he's on it right now. And InkCloud is a enterprise platform SaaS solution for the print industry. So let's talk about the print industry. This is a legacy, old school, kind of blue collar industry that's kind of been left behind. And one of the challenges that they face is that they're using antiquated software that is overpriced, inefficient, and really costs them a ton of money. And one of the problems of COVID is a lot of these printers had an inability to compete in 2020, 2021 due to these high costs. Some of the costs have come at the expense of these printers going out of business. Other printers have done very, very well by adopting more efficient solutions in order to compete. And what we're talking about here are really the print manufacturers of the world, commercial printers, large scale, $10 million plus manufacturers, trade printers, print brokers, corporates that are doing printing, as well as agencies that are printing. And all these guys, they really need better MIS or enterprise type software. The market is huge. The total market, US market for enterprise print tech is $75 billion. The available market to software is about $2 to $5 billion. There's one big player that's a $1 billion player in this space. We're going after the obtainable market, which is about $100 million, which is 5% of the SAM. So let's talk about InkCloud. InkCloud has an end-to-end ERP print industry software platform. This has been built over the last 5 years. It's been in production for the last 2 years. And really InkCloud's solution benefits really is that it's a much more flexible platform that's available to these printers. So think of an agnostic print shop that can print anything from milk cartons to photos to all kinds of different things. InkCloud can take care of all these guys from those products to t-shirts to everything. It's built with modern technology, and it over current products, it saves a ton of money for these guys as they go to market with our product. Our founder is a print expert who's been doing this for 15 years. He's also an architect, software architect, who has developed this product. So we want to be the next generation in the print industry that solves this enterprise platform, offering end-to-end solution in the print industry. With our product, we know that these print businesses will be able to print better, faster, and smarter through our platform. And we're offering this to multiple end users, from enterprise platform users to print brokers who are running like e-commerce stores. So let's talk about the product. This is a flexible product order management system. Again, you can set up any products on here. There's microsites that are available for fulfillment. There's e-commerce storefronts like Shopify that are part of this platform. Commercial printers can use it. We have full print business management integrated into the system, including shipping, inventory, and multiple API integrations. And it's really customizable, as I said, for all kind of printers. Built with the latest technologies, Kubernetes, PCI compliant, lightning fast, hosted on Google Cloud. These are some of the integrations we're using. You can see multiple shipping and accounting integrations. Here's where we sit in the space. InCloud offers full service end-to-end enterprise type solution on par with some of the big players at a much lower cost. As I mentioned, these are the kind of customers we're going after, commercial printers all the way to agencies, and offering as a SaaS solution to these clients with 3 tiers of service. Here's our traction over the last couple of years: 112 fulfillment clients, 800,000 jobs run, $17,000 monthly revenue. We're projecting up to $1 million of revenue in the next 18 months, 30% year-over-year growth. So we feel like it's had a great traction and a great attractiveness to our current customers. Here's our forecast for monetization over the next 3 years. Our go-to-market strategy is really focusing on SEO content, as well as Google Ads and a sales referral network, as well as affiliate partners, as well as direct outreach to these customers. Here's our team. Adam, as I mentioned, is our CEO. I'm COO, and we have a strong support team in the Philippines that runs our dev and support. And our ask today is $500,000 on a convertible note, really focused on sales and marketing, as well as support of the product itself. And that's our story.
Thank you, Neil. If there are any questions, please make them brief, as we did exceed 5 minutes.
Niall, could you talk a little bit about what the 112 customers you have right now and how they pan out to, the slide that you have on who your potential customers are? What types of customers are you looking at right now that's driving that revenue?
Yeah, so these are all mid-sized print companies, anywhere from about $5 to $10 million revenue. We feel like that market is a strong market because they're, the cost for them is super expensive, and they need to save money. This was all organic growth up until this last year when we went public. So there's many of these printers. There's probably 2,000 to 3,000 of these printers around the country that you can go after with these kind of revenues.
Would a company like FedEx Office be a candidate, or do they have their own proprietary software?
Yeah, what we're thinking about here are print manufacturers. So ink kind of printing, where you're printing, volumes of information, not copier type of services.
Oh, not retail printing.
Yeah, not retail, commercial, and B2B.
A really quick question, right? So as more companies are going digital and also being more environmentally friendly, right? Do you think that will have a downstream effect on your product offering?
Yeah, the print industry is a legacy industry, but the fact is that, whether it's a prescription for your medication from the pharmacy, or whether it's a banner for a business, or whether it's a book, stuff's still getting printed, and the industry's still huge, $75 billion. That's only on the print tech side. So, the main players will stay and will grow. Packaging, all kinds of things. You can imagine that's still a very relevant business. Great question, Chris.
Thank you again to the InCloud team, and we're now going to move on to our final pitch. So I'd like to welcome Balaji from Invento Robotics. And thanks again, InCloud.
Hey guys, good evening. What things with you? Okay, are you guys able to see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
We're good.
Hey, hi. This is Balaji Vishwanathan from Inventor Robotics. I'm a PhD candidate at University of Maryland, working on CS and robotics. I'm in the final stage of submitting my thesis. So we build robots to enable human avatars to take place everywhere. We have had remote work for some time, but the remote work that we currently do through Zoom and others do not enable us to do see, touch, hear in remote locations. Most of the work, apart from knowledge work, is still done physically in place. Things in healthcare, retail, warehousing, and so on. So we have taken up robots as a way to solve that problem, enabling human workers to take a avatar, a physical avatar, anywhere in the world, anytime, through the robots, and using a lot of the intelligence on board of the robot. So these robots that you see, this is our flagship robot, Mitra. It is about 5 foot tall robot with the ability to hold things, lift things, grab, and it also has autonomous navigation through its LiDAR to be able to move around the environment and be able to engage in a variety of things. For one of the major Fortune 500 companies, we enable a monitoring within their factory floor and enable their workers to be able to both interact through it, as well as find a lot of insights, including whether there's a compliance violation or the machinery is running properly. A couple of tools that we have put in and enable the supervisors to take a remote avatar in the factories happening around the world. And so the key thing is, with the smart robots as well as the remote human workers working together, we can provide a lot better quality and low cost in operations in the range of new sectors that are emerging. So we have two big areas that are emerged. So over the last 3 years, we have done pilots and engagements in a number of sectors. And the sector where we are now seeing the most growth is in healthcare, especially in the senior care, where we have closed a number of recent customers and started pilots in 2 countries. And then in retail engagement, again, it's a key area that is happening where we are working with some of the major brands, including P&G and Nestle. So this is the model that we are providing. We provide the robot hardware separately, and then the robot as a service we provide at $600 per month. This includes both the robot's software services part, as well as the remote human fleet manager who's managing this thing. So this pricing model, we are still working out on some of them and experimenting. So there will be a tiered pricing with the basic structure as this one. So we have made a 750K in revenues so far with our pilot engagements with companies like P&G, Nestle, and a range of healthcare companies too. And we have also worked with technology companies like Accenture, Infosys, who take up our product and then add their solutions to package it to their customers. And in India, where we first started, so we have had a lot of national recognition. This is the Indian Prime Minister and at that point, the daughter of the US President. There have been a lot of program, and we have now brought that company to the US as a part of the Select USA program, which selects the best companies around the world to scale up in the US. So we have now shifted our parent company to the US, and the founders have moved here too. And the recent past, these are the key achievements. There is a $10 million contest going called X-Prize Avatar. And we are in the semifinals of this contest to happen in Miami. Over 2 years, multiple levels of filtering has happened to come to this. And we have multiple university partnerships, including Texas A&M, as well as University of Maryland. So we have applied for multiple NIH grants also through this. And we're also part of the Mass Challenge cohort this time. And our work, especially in enabling the nurses to operate remotely, has come up in CNN, BBC, and a host of global media. And this is a team. I'm an ex-Microsoftie and currently finishing my PhD in robotics. My co-founder is a strong mechanical engineer. Mahalakshmi, she comes from a hardware and operations background. And Arvind was previously CTO of a health tech company in Atlanta and has over 15 years of experience in tech. So currently we are raising $1 million seed round. We have previously raised $1 million in India. And currently we are closing up this round to scale up in the US. so far about 300K is committed. Remaining 700K we are looking at from this LA Angels. So that's where we are. So robots are no longer just a future; it is present, and we are here to bring it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to open it up for any final questions before we tally up the results.
Thank you, Balaji. From the pilots you've done, do you have any case study numbers on, the amount of time that the robots are saving, or dollars, or what's the numbers in terms of results to the people that are purchasing the units, please?
Absolutely. So there are direct metrics and indirect metrics. Direct metrics in terms of amount of dollars saved, it's still a bit early to bring in. So what we bring in are indirect metrics in terms of number of engagements that are happening, and number of hours the robots are used by the supervisors. This thing. So for instance, we are in two segments. In a PNG kind of a setup, so we measure in terms of total amount of distance the robot has traveled and amount of time it has engaged the supervisor, which we use as a proxy for the productivity gain of the supervisor. And in a caregiving segment, we measure in terms of total number of interactions the end patient as on a daily basis. We shoot for about 50 interactions per day per robot. So those are that more direct metrics like cost saving. It will take about a year or so to bring up enough case study for that.
Thank you.
What is the cost of building a unit?
It's about, so we have two different models. It's about $2,000 currently. 2,000,
that's all?
Yeah. So we design and we have a contract manufacturer to manufacture it, but completely we design and manage the entire process.
Are there any final questions? Got it. Thank you so much, Balaji, for presenting Inventor Robotics. And now that all of our startups have gone, I would just like to get a confirmation from all of our judges that they've finished scoring before we announce the winner. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. And Stacy, that leaves you. Perfect. Okay, just give me one moment here. Okay, I would like to officially announce Lurid.io as the winner of the lightning round. Let's all give a virtual round of applause. I'll welcome them really quick to the front here, but I do want to thank everyone who attended today for all of your support. It was a pleasure for me to operate this as my first event with Spark. And Handoyo and Lirid, the whole team, we really appreciate your participation, and we look forward to connecting with you more. So if anyone has any final remarks, please state them, but feel free to trickle out. We will be posting this on our YouTube channel at Spark. And once again, thank you so much to our startups and to our judges.